today as a pensioners campaigner, but who happens also to be the General Secretary of the National Pensioners Convention. Thank you very much, Dr. Gibson.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is this on? Can you hear me? Okay. Well, thank you very much indeed. I suppose the people on this platform are supposed to be winding up but I think everybody's as wound up as they could possibly be. And so I'm going to say a few sober things, actually. I think that pensioners and older or younger oldies have a special responsibility for those students from the universities and from the schools who are now coming into action, because we have to make a balance sheet of where we came in and what happened in the interim period, in order that we can understand not to make the same mistakes and what we have to stand up for in order to make sure that they and future generations are not left in the same boat that we have been left in. Because after all, the TUC is going to have a demonstration on the 26th of March next year, and at this moment the Labour Party in government is saying that they're in favour of some cuts and not all cuts. Are we going to go on a demonstration saying we're in favour of these cuts and not those cuts? No. We're going to demonstrate and organise a rolling campaign between now and the 26th of March to say against all the cuts, in defence of the gains that we've made. And we're going to have to discuss, and I'm glad there's going to be a policy conference, discuss what kind of society we want, how we're going to get it, and what is implicit in every action we take. Whether it's workers coming out in support of each other, whether it forms itself at a certain point into a general strike, whether it's locally outside our doctors' surgeries or outside our council chambers, we have to know what we're fighting for and go ahead on that basis. In 1945, many of those who are in the pensioners movement were young at the time, and it was a changed society that was wanted. It was a mass movement. It said no to the pre-war situation of unemployment, of paying for education, of paying for medical services. On Thursday, I was in Glasgow at a meeting, and an 87-year-old who was 22 years old and a sailor at the end of the Second World War was explaining how his father sent him the Labour Party election programme and how he took it and discussed it with the other young sailors on that battleship, and how he was called in front of the officer who was in charge of these young seafarers and said to him, well, look, you're in trouble. They've had high-level discussions about the fact that you're circulating this Labour Party manifesto. But he said, it happens to be that I support you and I'm voting exactly the same way, so carry on fighting. The issue was that at 87 he came to a meeting and he said that what was happening today was dredging up all of those things that had happened to him at that time and since. And it's the same for all of us. In 1945 and after that, for 8 years, my mother went to the LCC offices down the road and checked every single week where we were on the housing list. And when we finally got somewhere to live, a council flat in 1953, it was an absolutely amazing thing. But in 1960, my family, I got twin sons at the age of 18 months at the time, we were evicted under the Rent Act, and we were put into one of these bed and breakfast places, and I won't tell you the situation that we went through, it'd take too long. But now again, my family, my grandchildren at university don't know whether they're going to get a job and don't know whether they're going to get anywhere to live. So each time it comes up, we have to ask ourselves, when do we put a stop to all of this? The welfare state was set up not for the poor, it was set up as universalism to prevent poverty. It was a system which was set out to provide care for people and to prevent poverty. But there was compromise at that time, and I think we have to understand what that compromise was and the effect of it. The compromise was the mixed economy, so that the private sector could use the public sector to make its profits. You had the pharmaceutical industry, you had rolling stock on the railways and the buses, you had all the equipment for the mines and so on, and all the other industries, service industries like electricity, and huge profits were made out of that. But the compromise therefore laid the foundations for what Thatcher, Major, Blair and Brown have done since. Because over that period of time, with the private sector waiting in the wings, and then coming forward during Thatcher and overturning many of our public services and our NHS, we began to see the undermining of the welfare state. So it isn't something that had happened yesterday, it's been happening over a whole period of time. We had privatisation, means testing, and together with that, anti-union laws to hold workers back from defending those things and defending their own lives and the future. By 2007, the public sector market, as it is now really called, had 75 billion of contracts to private companies. Now that is over 100 billion. And we see the absolutely incredible, awful, terrible situation where older people and disabled people, profits are made on the care of those people. And in the pensioners movement, we can tell you that day in and day out we're getting terrible stories of the sort of things that are happening. And I just want to give you one instance because it is absolutely outrageous and very, very worrying indeed and distressing. I went to speak in an ASLEF annual general meeting of their retired members last Friday. And at that meeting, after that meeting, a chap came up, he was probably about the same age as me, in his 70s, and he said, I didn't want to say it to the whole meeting because I'm likely to cry. My 103-year-old mother, we had to eventually ask her to go into a care home, and she was raped by a 38-year-old carer in this private care home. And this is the sort of thing you've got to understand is happening. It is happening. And that's why it's very important that we understand what is happening to frail elderly people and that the whole movement stands up for every single individual. It's not just a question of saying that trade unionists support trade unionists. It's a question of saying trade unionists must support the students, the school children and the older people who are in this situation. So in 1945 it was for our children and our grandchildren. We are now in a situation where millions of people are going to learn new lessons, but our generation has to make the balance sheet. A new society is at its heart. We have to have a programme of democratic rights and stand up for them, occupy, fight, take actions, and we have to say it's not a question of the TUC having a demonstration which says we're supporting a Labour government that would put through the same cuts. We have to insist on our political representatives, whoever they may be in the future, because I don't hold much out for those who we have now, to start saying we're going to end all this and have a real different society. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gibson. And I'm delighted to welcome Chris Stanbury, the Right to Work. Thank you, Chris.